Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. And would the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Orenshaw,
Here.
Senator Gorkachia, Senator Neal,
Here.
Senator Hansen, Chair Dondero Loop.
Here. Thank you very much. All members are present. Thank you, Senator Neal, for joining us on Zoom. I'm going to spare the class the overview of how to enter and do everything because I know you've heard it 300 times and I'm guessing you know how to do it. So we're going to start with work session, I think, because we have a couple people that may need to be in and out for bills. So those of you that are presenting bills, if you would wrap your patience, we would love it. So Ms. Keller, when you're ready, go ahead.
Elisa Keller, Committee Policy Analyst, and I will be presenting the bills for the committee's consideration today. The work session documents are available on Nellis, and please be reminded that as nonpartisan staff of the Legislative Council Bureau, I neither support nor oppose any of the legislation before the committee. The first bill for the committee's consideration is Assembly Bill 2, revises provisions relating to appointments to public bodies, sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs on behalf of the Nevada Association of Counties, and heard by this committee on April 23rd. Assembly Bill 2, in its first reprint, revises the prohibition against gubernatorial appointees serving simultaneously on multiple boards, commissions, or similar bodies. The bill allows a gubernatorial appointee to serve on up to 3 boards, commissions, or similar bodies simultaneously, and there were no amendments proposed for the measure.
Any questions, committee? Senator Neal?
Sorry. No, I don't have any questions on this.
All right, seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to pass.
Thank you very much. Move to pass by Senator Orenshaw, second by Senator Gokachia. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. And,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
you might want to do a consent type thing on this. I honestly, I don't have any I'm voting no on, so rather than going bill by bill, we may be able to, unless there's somebody that has some heartburn on some of them. Just a thought.
Thanks, Senator Hansen. Next session, you can be my vice chair. I appreciate that. But in this case, we'll just go ahead and move along. Thanks much. So with that, Senator Neal, would you like to do the floor statement on this one? Since it came out of Assembly
Sure.
Government Affairs. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on.
Assembly Bill 3, in its first reprint, authorizes, subject to certain requirements, the electronic filing, submission, and presentation of maps and related documents for purposes of the division of land, except in circumstances where the county recorder does not accept electronic documents for recording. Sponsored on behalf of the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities, heard by this committee on April 26th. And at the hearing, the League of Cities proposed a conceptual amendment, which is included in the work session document, removing subsection 1E of section 1 from the bill.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the bill? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Chair, I move to amend and do pass with the amendment of the work session document.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Orenshaw. Do I have a second? Second from Senator Gokachia. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, thank you very much. Senator Hansen, since you're looking for something to do down there, how about you take the floor statement?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
More than welcome, sir. Okay, go ahead.
Assembly Bill 13, sponsored on behalf of the State Controller and heard by this committee on March 24th, revises the information that the State Controller must include in the annual report of certain financial information that is provided to the governor and the legislator pursuant to NRS 227.110. The bill requires that the report provide a complete statement of the change from the immediately preceding fiscal year in the assets, liabilities, and resources of the state, and the amount of expenditures and revenues for the programs provided by the state. There are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll look for a motion.
Move, or second.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, thank you
Aye.
very much. And Senator Gokachia, would you take the floor statement on this? Thank you.
Assembly Bill 14 is sponsored on behalf of the Division of Emergency Management of the Department of Public Safety and was heard by this committee on April 26th. Assembly Bill 14, in its first reprint, changes the required frequency of meetings of the Nevada Resilience Advisory Committee and the Nevada Tribal Emergency Coordinating Council to at least once each quarter, changes the required frequency of meetings of the State Disaster Identification Coordination Committee, and the bill also removes the requirement that the State Disaster Identification Coordination Committee or a subcommittee thereof perform certain duties upon activation. Finally, the bill makes certain reports submitted by a provider of health care to the State Disaster Identification Coordination Committee discretionary during a state of emergency, declaration of disaster, a public health emergency, or other health event. And there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you very much. Motion?
Chair, I'd move do pass.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much. I'll take the floor statement.
Assembly Bill 21, sponsored on behalf of the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services, heard by this committee on April 30th. Assembly Bill 21, in its first reprint, authorizes a person for whom a fictitious address has been issued by the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services to request a county assessor or county recorder to maintain the personal information of the person contained in county records in a confidential manner without having to obtain a court order. The bill also provides the Secretary of State, a county or a county clerk from making personal contact information available. Finally, the bill authorizes any person for whom a fictitious address has been issued by DCFS to also request that the DMV display an alternate address on the person's driver's license, commercial driver's license, or identification card. There are no amendments proposed, but I would note that at the hearing during neutral testimony, David Dolly, the Carson City assessor requested that 4-year expiration language be included in the bill. And after the hearing, Mandy Davis with DCFS advised that they have agreed that DCFS will include an expiration date in the sworn affidavit.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions? Vice Chair?
Move, I was gonna, if you're taking a motion, Chair, I'll
Thank you. Yes, I am.
move do pass Assembly Bill 21.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much. And I'm getting you, aren't I, Senator Neal? I just want to make sure.
No, I'm a yes.
Okay. If I'm going too, I'm just hammering through these, so if I'm going too fast, let me know. Vice Chair Orenshaw, would you take the floor statement on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right.
Assembly Bill 22, sponsored on behalf of the Department of Veterans Services and heard by this committee on April 14th. Assembly Bill 22 requires the Director of the Department of Veterans Services to establish and maintain a program to assist veterans and servicemen and women in transitioning to life as civilians. The program must complement any similar federal government programs and is required to provide information and resources specific to this state concerning higher education, career development, physical and mental health, sexual trauma resources, housing, and other benefits available to veterans and servicemen and women. And there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this bill? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Senator Hansen, would you like the floor statement down that? Okay, I thought you would. Thank you very much.
Assembly Bill 28, sponsored on behalf of the Purchasing Division of the Department of Administration and heard by this committee on April 30th. Assembly Bill 28 imposes an inverse preference on any bidder for a state purchasing contract with a principal place of business in another state if, for a similar contract, the other state grants a preference to a person with a principal place of business in that state and denies that preference to a person with a principal place of business in the state of Nevada. The inverse preference imposed is equal to the amount of the preference that is denied by the other state, and the bill also clarifies that the inverse preference must be imposed regardless of whether the preference of 5% was awarded to a Nevada-based business or the preference of 5% was awarded to a local business owned and operated by a veteran with a service-connected disability. And there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And this one is calling your name, Senator Gokachia.
Assembly Bill 48, sponsored on behalf of the Public Employees Benefit Program, heard by this committee on April 21st. Assembly Bill 48 authorizes a retiree or surviving spouse from a non-participating local government agency to reinstate insurance under the Public Employees Benefits Program if the retiree did not have more than one period during which he or she was not covered by insurance under the program on or after October 1st, 2011, is enrolled in Medicare Parts A and B at the time of the request for reinstatement, and was enrolled in the program as a retiree on November 30th, 2008. And there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gokachia. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And Vice Chair Orenshaw, I think this one says you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Assembly Bill 55, sponsored on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas and heard by this committee on April 26th. Assembly Bill 55, in its first reprint, revises the charter of the City of North Las Vegas. The bill creates a charter committee to prepare recommendations to be presented to the legislature on behalf of the city concerning all necessary amendments to the charter. In addition to clarifying language and other provisions, the bill specifies that the removal of the city attorney must be in accordance with the terms of his or her employment contract, authorizes the city manager and city attorney to take certain legal action for collection and disposition of certain money, and authorizes the city council to hold an emergency meeting on the call of the mayor or by a majority of the council. Subsequent to posting of the work session document, a conceptual amendment was proposed by Jared Luke on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas, and that proposed amendment is available on Nellis. The amendment adds "be the custodian of" in Section 10 to provide that the city clerk shall keep the corporate seal and be the custodian of all official papers and records of the city.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this bill? Senator Neal?
No, I don't have any questions. I mean, there are amendments to it, and I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll take a motion.
Chair, I move that we amend and do pass with the amendment proposed in the work session document.
Thank you very much. I'll take a second.
Second.
Senator Gokachia, thank you very much. With that, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes, and Senator Neal, I think this is a perfect bill for you. Thank you very much.
Assembly Bill 63, sponsored on behalf of the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities, heard by this committee on April 26th. Assembly Bill 63, in its first reprint, authorizes a local government to use money from its fund established to stabilize the operation of government and mitigate the effects of a natural disaster, to also use those funds to mitigate the effects of a declared emergency. And there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second, Senator Gokachia, thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion passes, and I'll grab this one.
Assembly Bill 70, sponsored on behalf of the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services of the Department of Health and Human Services, heard by this committee on April 21st. Assembly Bill 70 requires the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services of the Department of Health and Human Services to deposit within 2 working days any child support payments it accumulates in excess of $10,000 on any day. The bill provides an exception for money for which the division is unable to identify the obligee within that period. In such cases, if the department identifies the obligee, the money must be deposited within 5 days after its accumulation. If the division is unable to identify, the money must be returned to the payor within 5 days after its accumulation. There are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second? Thank you very much, Senator Gokachia. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much. And Senator Orenshaw, would you take this one?
Assembly Bill 71, sponsored on behalf of the Division of Natural Heritage of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, heard by this committee on April 30th. Assembly Bill 71, in its first reprint, makes confidential the specific location of a rare plant, animal species, or ecological community that is included in data systems maintained by the Division of Natural Heritage of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. The bill also authorizes, under certain circumstances, the administrator to release the confidential information. Specifically, the bill provides that the administrator shall release this information to a person engaged in conservation, environmental review, or scientific research upon entering into a written agreement requiring the person to maintain confidentiality of the information to the extent necessary to protect the plant, animal species, or ecological community. At the hearing, Senator Goycochea proposed a conceptual amendment requiring the department to adopt regulations that require notice be provided to a private property owner whenever the Division of Natural Heritage releases information about the specific location of a rare plant or animal species or ecological community on the owner's property.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Motion to amend and do pass.
Thank you very
Second.
much. Thank you very much, Senator Gokachia, and then Vice Chair second. Any discussion on the motion?
Chair, I'm just going to make a brief comment. I just
Yes.
appreciate the division working with Senator Gokachia trying to address his concerns, because I understand what the division is trying to accomplish, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? All right. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? And motion passes, and I will hand that over to Senator Gokachia. Okay.
Assembly Bill 76, sponsored on behalf of the Department of Veteran Services, heard by this committee on April 23rd. Assembly Bill 76 authorizes the Director of the Department of Veteran Services to establish and operate programs to provide adult day health care services to veterans. These services are limited to the extent that federal funding is available. The bill also eliminates certain obsolete requirements governing the location of veterans' homes, and there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll take a second. Thank you very much, Senator Gocochea. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you very much. And I'll hand that one over to Senator Neal.
Okay? Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
And the final bill in the work session document is Assembly Bill 77, sponsored on behalf of the Department of Veteran Services, heard by this committee on April 14th. Assembly Bill 77 requires the Director of the Department of Veteran Services to assist veterans experiencing homelessness by connecting veterans to housing and other support organizations and create, coordinate, and support veterans' suicide prevention programs and resources. The bill also increases from 2 years to 3 years the length of a term for members of the Nevada Veteran Services Commission and the Advisory Committee for a Veterans Cemetery in Northern Nevada and the Advisory Committee for a Veterans Cemetery in Southern Nevada. And the length of a term for members of the Women's Veterans Advisory Committee is reduced from 4 years to 3 years. Finally, the bill includes provisions directing the appointment of new members and the reappointment of certain incumbent members of these entities, and there are no amendments proposed.
Thank you very much. Any questions about this bill? Thank you very much. I'll accept a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second? Second from Senator Gocochea. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just was really impressed by the testimony of the Director, Cap Miller, and what they're trying to do to help homeless veterans. I think this bill will go further towards trying to do that, so I'm going to be supporting the bill.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. This is a good bill. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. And Senator Ordshaw, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Okay, very good. All right, that wasn't too bad, was it, Mr. Hanson down there? Okay. All right. We still have you with us. All right, class, it's your turn. We will start, we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 186. Welcome, Assemblywoman. We're happy to have you.
Hello, Chair. How are you doing this
Oh,
afternoon?
no messing around in here. Thanks a lot.
I am ready to begin when you are ready.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Rochelle Wynn, and I am representing Assembly District 10 in Southern Nevada, Clark County, kind of central Las Vegas. I'm here to present Assembly Bill 186 for your consideration. Ticket and arrest quotas are a perverse policing activity that may at times be used to fund police departments and evaluate the effectiveness of police officers. There's use of damages, and these quotas are set predetermined number of transaction peace officers are required to issue in a given time frame. I will tell you that almost all of the law enforcement agencies here do have policies in place where quotas are not allowed and do not exist, I guess, in their policy manuals and their practice. But this practice of having quotas has been criticized as a revenue-generating measure that encourages unjust policing, pressures officers to unfairly target individuals, and particularly near the end of a given quota period. I always sit there and talk, and I'm sure everyone has this experience where it's the end of the month and you see a bunch of people being pulled over for speeding, and the first thing everyone says is, it must be that time of the month. They must be trying to meet their quotas. So that is kind of what I am referring to, and hopefully that is not a practice that is in place. But Assembly Bill 186 would ensure that it is not allowed to be a policy in any of our law enforcement agencies that deal with traffic safety. You will see that I submitted, and I apologize for the late nature of this. I did submit a conceptual amendment for your consideration. It was submitted late this afternoon, so I do apologize to members of the committee for that. There were individuals in the assembly side that wanted to be added on as a part of an amendment, and unfortunately, it did not make its way prior to the vote in the assembly. So the first part of that is to clarify the new added sections that were originally proposed in Assembly Bill 186 were Section 1, and there was subsection 1 and subsection 2. The existing language in that statute is already existing in this subsection. So this intends to delete subsection 2. There was an amendment on the Assembly side that changed some of the language in subsection 1, but that's already incorporated in the bill as I'm presenting it today. With that, I'm going to actually keep it short and sweet, and I'm going to actually turn this over to Eddie Ablesser from Tri-Strategies to provide any additional comments on the bill, with your permission, Chair.
Thank you very much, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable members of the committee, Chair Dondera Loop. For the record, my name is Eddie Ablesser with Tri-Strategies, EDDIEABLESCR. We're proud to represent the Nevada Police Union, the first statewide Category 1 peace officer union encompassing the brave men and women from state parks, university police, game wardens, and Department of Public Safety. I want to thank Assemblywoman Nguyen for her leadership and sponsorship of this really important issue. This past year has been a whirlwind for our peace officers. From the national attention to the many tragic deaths across the country, to attempting to enforce COVID policies, siege on our nation's capital, and brave men, women and men who wear the badge have been praised and then demonized and then canonized all in a period of about 10 months. Our goal at the Nevada Police Union is to support reasonable and common sense policies that drive directly at the primary goal of law enforcement, keep all in our community safe. It is with that intent that the Nevada Police Union has brought the problem of quotas in citations and arrests, commonly known as policing for profit. I want to be very clear, the practice of demanding a specific quantity of citations and arrests from management to line level does not adhere to the mission of keeping everyone in our community safe. While evaluating officers based on the number of citations and arrests was a way of managing in the 1970s, this methodology's time has come and gone. What this method does is hurt the most vulnerable and underprivileged citizens in our community. Moreover, underprivileged and communities of color are disproportionately affected by these practices. An example of this is how our hardworking men and women from low-income communities oftentimes cannot afford basic vehicle repairs such as a broken taillight or headlights, not to mention an expired registration. When there's a quota by police management, police officers will stop and ticket drivers for minor traffic violations or for exceeding the speed limit by only a few miles per hour. These are violations and speeds that they would normally not be bothered with. Moreover, when officers are pressured to reach a certain target of custodial arrests, they oftentimes are forced with a tough decision of either arresting someone and reach the quota management mandated or simply issue a simple citation for crimes such as misdemeanor traffic warrants, excessive speeding, reckless driving, or panhandling, which at most times is the appropriate course of action, but in doing so could be faced by being placed on a 90-day performance review period for not reaching their quota. In some circumstances, officers are pushed to average around 100 citations per month, along with other tasks. Management generally does not put quotas into writing, although verbally they will tell officers to push for higher numbers, often writing a ticket near the end of the month that they may not normally write. I've heard many accounts of what this archaic method does to our officers. One trooper who led their shift in crashes investigated, DUI arrests, and calls for service was brought into command, and assuming he was going to be praised for doing good work on the roads, was instead reprimanded by management for having the least amount of citations on the squad. That trooper left the disciplinary meeting and regretfully gave a citizen to the first person that they caught speeding. She happened to be a senior citizen who was on the way to the hospital attending a family emergency and was compelled to write the ticket because of the quotas that were in place. Honorable members of the Government Affairs Committee, the language of this bill is simple, but effective. NRS 289 will be amended to prohibit any law enforcement agency from ordering, mandating, or requiring that any peace officer must issue a certain number of citations or arrests. Furthermore, these agencies, originally in the bill without the amendment, would be prohibited from considering it in the performance reviews, and that's removed. And we're comfortable with that language. A quota might be a good place for manufacturing companies, but simply have no place in modern-day policing. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm available for any questions.
And if I could just follow up with respect to what the intent in removing that subsection 2 from section 1 in the amendment is, during the opposition testimony that was presented by some of the members of law enforcement and my conversations with other law enforcement, they had concerns that they would not be able to look at the quantity of or a numerical number of citations or arrests in officer performance evaluations. While I think that they look at, I've heard up to 100 different things that they look at in assessing in those performance evaluations, they didn't want to be prohibited from looking at those actors that they deemed to be bad actors that were, for example, I heard of a situation where someone had been working for 9 months and had not made a single arrest or citation during that time. And so they want to be able to look at that number of 0 and be able to compare that and look at that in addition to some of the other things. So my intention in removing that was to make sure that we maintain the policy of prohibiting quotas and requiring a certain number, but also allowing police management and other people to be able to look at those like objectively in determining a performance evaluation. So that was my intent in maintaining the integrity of the quotas as well as doing that. So I just wanted to make that very clear, but we are open for any questions.
Thank you very much. So just to be clear, we're going to remove where it starts, a law enforcement agency shall not consider the number of citations?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the right one. All right, any questions? Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I had a question on that section, but is all of sub 2 struck out?
That's correct.
Oh, well, then I don't have any questions.
Well, that fixed that. Any questions? Senator Hansen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I guess the question first is, this couldn't be too common of a problem because there's no fiscal note. I mean, if these guys are using tickets to essentially fund their agency, there was no fiscal impact, so it can't be that frequent of a problem, or what?
I would say, Rochelle Wynn for the record, I would say that we don't have that policing, like direct tie to monetary, like funding of our police departments through traffic tickets. I think we have a larger conversation about how we fund our courts and other systems of government on the backs of traffic tickets, but that's for another bill and at another time. I think it's a policy that's in place to prevent that. I think having this like in statute is important so we aren't encouraged in the future. And like I said, I think it is something that we need not only that policy and statute to prevent this from going forward, but also to encourage people to look at their departments where we have a situation, like I said, where you're driving down the road and everyone's like, are they trying to meet their quota for the month? Like, why is everyone giving tickets? Are there more tickets? Are people speeding? Is traffic worse at the end of the time of the year? Or do we have a situation where the numbers are looked at in the situation that Mr. Ablasser had like presented, where someone who had been praised in other aspects of their job as a law enforcement officer were being penalized because they weren't writing tickets. So that's my intent in Assembly Bill 186.
Oh, I got it. I just wanted to make sure that we're not, if it's a consistent thing that they're using to actually help fund their agency, we would have to have a fiscal thing. Because, I've never got a ticket in my life, of course, so, because I always obey the law perfectly, so it doesn't affect me in any way. Actually, I remember very distinctly, in all honesty, in about 2008 or 9, when the economy collapsed, all of a sudden, cops were everywhere, and they were giving, I got like 3 tickets. I got a ticket for crossing a white line when I'm entering a thing, and the traffic is split. cop pulled me over, and I'm almost convinced that they were using it to raise revenue. So I mean, I'm familiar with it, but also I don't want to get it so that we again go after the cops, because the reality is they're there to help keep traffic safe and keep everybody behaving within reasonable bounds. And the real check on a guy like me, frankly, is insurance. When I get a ticket and I pay the $150 or whatever for speeding, that's not the end of it. Then all of a sudden, when I renew my insurance, it's like, wow, it went up that much? Yeah, because you got 2 tickets in a 2-year window or whatever. So anyway, it seems like it's been, I guess watered down wouldn't be the correct term, but it's been cut back to where are the law enforcement guys going to testify in favor of it now? Or well, I shouldn't. We'll wait till they testify. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, Senator Hansen, just for the record, you have had a ticket or you haven't had a ticket?
I'm a politician. I can lie a little bit, can't
Yeah,
I? No? Yep. No, I've had my fair share of tickets.
Okay, I was just checking for the record, sir.
I have.
And Rochelle Wynn, for the record, your conversation, hopefully one day I will be over here and you will be able to hear Assembly Bill 116 that addresses some of those concerns that you have.
Thank you very much. All right, well, with that, if you have no more comments and we have no more confessions, we will go straight to our public. Thank you very much. All right, we have somebody in support right here in the room. Yay. All right, go ahead, please, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Troyce, Troyce, Krumme. I represent the Las Vegas Police Managers and Supervisors Association, representing the sergeants, lieutenants, and captains of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We supported AB 186 in the Assembly, and I am here today in continued support with the amended language. This is a good step in the direction of decreasing the over-reliance on statistics by police organizations to determine productivity. It will allow police supervisors to hold officers accountable to their policing responsibilities without the pressure of having to make stops for the sake of making stops. The effect and the goal of this should be to increase the public trust in the police professionals in our great state of Nevada. We encourage this committee's support of AB 186.
Thank you very much. Would you spell your last name again, please?
Certainly, Krumme.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room in support? All right, we will go to the lines broadcasting when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. If you would like to testify in support of AB 186, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of AB 186, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 080. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Jim Hoffman, Hoffman, representing Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. NACJ supports AB 186. And I just want to say, a lot of the time the defense bar and the police unions have pretty diametrically opposed views about how the criminal justice system should work. So I would submit that this is a good piece of criminal justice reform, and that if we can come together to agree on this policy, that's a strong argument in favor of it. We support this bill, and we urge the committee to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 130, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders. That's CHRISTINE SAUNDERS. I'm the Policy Director with Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada, here in support of Assembly Bill 186. We want to thank Assemblywoman Wynn for bringing forward this piece of legislation. AB 186 is a common sense policy and will help reduce police profiling. We urge your support.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 490. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus, Hojjaty. We would like to thank the Assemblywoman for bringing this issue. When I moved to Las Vegas several years ago, I have noticed a surge of myself being pulled over from California. It is absolutely insane. In some cases, I was pulled over twice a month. One of this is because that in the Las Vegas area, there's a lot of speeding traps, particularly when you head northward on Paradise Road away from the airport, where you go downward and it's a 35 mile an hour and it was hard to even see the sign. There was no light. They hide to give you tickets. A lot of my relatives, one of them who's named Muhammad, feels like he's being pulled over because they can scan the license plate and they can get the name and information because of that name. While we think this is very important to reduce the chance of quotas and pullovers, we also think that that is, on the other hand, part of the problem. Other major problem is that the Las Vegas urban planning system is perhaps very problematic. As you know, it's a very car-dependent system where land uses are heavily separated, the street layouts are not interconnected, and they're designed to heavily encourage car usage. Not to mention the fact that insurance costs remain among the highest levels in the entire country. All these large collector roads like Rainbow Boulevard and Sahara encourages speeding since there's very little traffic calming measures that act like hybrids of street and highways in one thing. Not to mention that there's also issues with the fact that, and I don't mean to sound like a lunatic, but most of the time, the way I see it, stop signs and stoplights don't really manage traffic very, very well. In other words, there are other means that can actually affect traffic more efficiently, such as raised crosswalks or turbo roundabouts, which they have in Europe, where I suggest that we update our traffic systems to make sure that cop pullovers and accidents and all other issues are reduced dramatically. While I think that this bill is certainly a step forward, it will not effectively solve the entire problem of traffic and tickets.
Thank you
But other
very
than
much.
that, thank you so much for bringing this bill forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 346. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you very much, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Reverend Michael Willoughby, MICHAEL, and I am the Tech Director for Battleborn Progress in Las Vegas. We are proudly here in support of AB 186 and thank Assemblywoman Nguyen for her work on this bill and overall to make Nevada a more just and equitable place to live. Quota-based policing is terrible, ineffective policy, plain and simple. It encourages officers to proactively look for minor violations and give tickets instead of warnings, creating resentment in the community and increasing incidences of police contact, which put vulnerable communities at risk by pulling them into the criminal justice system. This bill is a step towards fixing that. Please support AB 186. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently in support of AB 186. To testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move to opposition.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 186, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you are now unmuted. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Chuck Callaway, Callaway, representing the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Appreciate the communication with Assemblywoman Nguyen on this bill. We certainly support the intent of the bill. LVMPD does not have quotas. We do not receive direct revenue from citations, and there is no policing for profit occurring on our agency. We do, however, have performance measures, and officers engage in a number of activities on a daily basis. And part of their activities that they engage in includes enforcing the law. Law enforcement is a component of that. As of this morning, we've had 45 fatalities on our roadways. And when you see those officers pulling people over on the roadway, the Joining Forces campaign, it's not to meet a quota. It is to try to reduce fatalities on our roadway. And those stops take place in areas where we see high traffic accidents. Supervisors must be able to hold our employees accountable for their work performance. And I believe that the amendment proposed by Assemblywoman Nguyen alleviates a lot of my concerns regarding the bill. I do still have a concern in Section 2 of the bill. I'm not sure which Section 2 is being deleted, if it's subsection 2 of Section 1. But Section 2 in and of itself, we've heard in almost every hearing this session about bad apple officers. That section is the same issue that was raised in SB 2 during the special session. The way that reads, if an officer were, say, to be under investigation internally for use of force that resulted from a traffic stop, if that officer claimed that he stopped the car because his supervisor told him he had to have a quota or had to make traffic stops, an arbitrator would have any evidence in that case as inadmissible. So it would limit our ability to hold people accountable for their actions. Again, we certainly support the intent of the bill and look forward to the amendment that's coming that can hopefully get us in support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Callaway. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 196, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Don Darrell Loop and members of the Senate Government Affairs Committee. I'm Eric Spratley, S-P-R-A-T-L-E-Y, the Executive Director of the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association. None of the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association membership supports having quotas. We are here in opposition of AB 186, even with the conceptual amendment showing on Nellis. We absolutely support the intent of Section 1 of the bill and have worked with and thank Assemblywoman Nguyen to try and arrive at a language which ratchets down the type of improper supervisory and officer behaviors, yet gives law enforcement agency leadership, and that's who I represent, the ability to properly manage these supervisors and officers. We've not arrived at that language. We oppose Section 2 of this bill, as that little language change in NRS 289 further erodes management's ability to hold bad cops accountable. Similar to SB 242 from the 80th session, which I vehemently and passionately warned y'all about back then, this bill is another chip at the foundation of your elected and appointed law enforcement agency leaders' ability to successfully discipline or remove officers who behave poorly. In the special session last year, the citizens of color were nearly demanding that the provisions of SB 242 be overturned, and while some changes were made, it was not. Here you are looking at another piece of legislation that again provides a benefit to an officer facing discipline. So a sinkhole that swallows up a car in the middle of the road doesn't happen at once. It happens with small and continuous erosion over time. Section 2 of this bill is that erosion. And you will continue to wonder why certain crappy cops remain employed and taking advantage of the underserved people. Please give our law enforcement agency leaders, whom you elect and appoint, the ability to manage poor officer behavior. And for that reason, we oppose AB 186. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently in opposition of AB 186. To testify in opposition, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Can we go to neutral, please?
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 186, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify neutral on AB 186, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. Closing comments, Assemblywoman.
Thank you. Rochelle Wynn, for the record. And just briefly, I just want to address some of the comments that were made. Again, my intent is to make sure that in statute, in policy, that it is a priority of this legislative body to make sure that people are not being required or forced to issue quotas. I have no problem, and I don't think that falls into this line where there were callers talking about speed traps. I think speed traps are set up for traffic safety purposes, and that is not my intent, and I don't think that's what this bill does. Again, as far as the officer performance evaluations, taking that whole entire subsection out, I think alleviates those kind of concerns by still maintaining this. I understand the objections to the entirety of Chapter 289. Unfortunately, this bill is just addressing the one issue that it relates to police quotas and making sure that they are not a part of a policy in our state. So I'd urge you to support Assembly Bill 186, and I will continue to work with any opposition as well as supporters in making sure that we get the language of this bill right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman, and we're happy to have you here. All right, with that, I'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 186, and we'll open the hearing on Assembly Bill 333. And welcome, Assemblywoman Krasner. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Don Darrell Loop and Senate Government Affairs Committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today and present to you. I am Assemblywoman Lisa Krasner, representing State Assembly District 26. I'm pleased to introduce AB 333 to the committee today. This is a bill that pertains primarily to stormwater management and judicial review of land use decisions. As you may know, Northern Nevada experienced historic storms in 2017, stressing and overwhelming our stormwater mitigation facilities. In the Reno-Sparks area, as it continues to grow rapidly, our local governments have required new developments to plan for similar historic stormwater events. These requirements are perfectly reasonable and appropriate. However, as developers are required to hold back more and more stormwater, it raises a legal question of whether a water appropriation is required. That is certainly not the intent of these mitigation requirements, and this bill makes it clear that no such appropriation is required when a local government requires stormwater retention or detention. Aside from water, this bill also sets forth a briefing schedule for judicial review of land use decisions by a local government. The schedule is consistent with the same briefing schedule in Nevada law for judicial review of executive branch agency decisions. This will help ensure that judicial review of land use decisions proceeds efficiently and expeditiously. With that said, I have with me two co-presenters, Mr. Michael Pagney and Mr. Don Padalock, to present the bill, explain the proposed technical cleanup amendment, and answer all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It doesn't matter who goes first. Mr. Pagney, would you like to go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to Assemblywoman Krasner for that introduction. As she indicated, this bill really includes or consists of two different components. The first one addresses the procedures for seeking judicial review. As you know, when an aggrieved person can seek judicial review of a decision by a local government by filing a petition for judicial review within 25 days. The petition is really in the nature of an appeal, and so those cases are decided by submission of briefs. However, nothing in the current law sets forth when those briefs must be filed, which in practice has led to considerable delay in ensuring the important constitutional property rights at issue are submitted to courts in a timely fashion. In fact, it's not uncommon for some of these decisions to take years before a court decides them, which leaves the development status in limbo and creates opportunities for abuse by opponents who are seeking to simply delay projects. Section 1 of the bill adds timeframes for when those briefs must be filed, as Assemblywoman Krasner indicated, consistent with the Administrative Procedures Act. 40 days for the opening brief, 30 days for the answering brief, 30 days for a reply brief. The forms of the brief must comply with the Nevada Rules of Appellate Procedure. And within 7 days of completing the briefing, either party may request a hearing. Few items to note on this schedule. As she indicated, it's consistent with the schedule in the Administrative Procedures Act. This schedule has been in place for over 30 years, works very well in practice, and avoids the delays and abuses that we've seen in the local government review process. Second, like the Administrative Procedures Act, Section 1 of this bill also grants courts the ability to extend those times if good cause is shown. So this avoids any concerns of potentially interfering with the exercise of judicial discretion. We've all heard the phrase, justice delayed is justice denied, and Section 1 really seeks to address that concern by eliminating the opportunity for the abuse of the judicial system through delayed hearing procedures. The second component of the bill is set forth in Section 2.5, and the intent of this section is to codify the historic practice of the state engineer and recognize that when local governments require management of stormwater runoff created from new development, that stormwater management does not require a water right permit. Under existing law, as she indicated, cities and counties are authorized to regulate the development of land, which regulation often includes imposing requirements to retain, hold back, or detain, slow down nuisance stormwater flows. The simple example to think of is a parking lot. When it's dirt, some rain will soak into the ground, some will puddle on the site, some will flow off to the neighboring properties. But as soon as you develop that land and you put pavement on it, that water all sheet flows off of the site. It's this increase in stormwater flow caused by the development, those hard surfaces, pavement, rooftops, that we're really seeking to address with this bill. And as she indicated, in Northern Nevada, managing those stormwater flows has become an important issue. And so local governments have imposed requirements on new developments, requiring them to either create retention ponds to hold that water on site so it can soak into the ground or evaporate off, or detention structures to slow it down so that when it does leave the land, it's leaving the land at the same flow that it did before the development occurred. Currently, the state engineer does not require any water rights permits for these practices. However, with the exception of certain projects in Clark County, the exemption is not explicitly set forth in statute. And the intent of this bill is to simply codify this historic practice to allow local governments to manage those stormwater flows in an appropriate manner without imposing administrative burdens on the state. While we agree with and support the state engineer's historic approach, obviously there's some concern that someone may read Chapter 533 as requiring a water right or could construe it in that way. So we felt it important to clarify and codify this current practice into law. You can imagine the unintended consequences with that type of interpretation, the enormous financial burdens on state and local governments if they were required to appropriate a water right to put in a road, or how development could grind to a halt in an over-appropriated basin where there simply aren't water rights available for appropriation. The effect of this bill is to avoid those unintended consequences while allowing local governments to manage stormwater flows in a responsible manner. Another thing to point out is nothing in this bill modifies or affects other permitting requirements for stormwater management. NDEP construction stormwater permits, stormwater pollution prevention plans, or similar permits regarding water quality. None of those are affected by this bill. This simply addresses the question of whether you need to appropriate a water right to temporarily retain these nuisance stormwater flows. I would like to speak quickly about the consensus amendment. So following the Assembly Committee hearing, we worked very closely with the Division of Water Resources and other stakeholders, including the City of Reno and Eureka County, on clarifications to the bill to address concerns that they had about unintentionally encompassing other types of waters that are regulated by the state engineer. And a consensus amendment was agreed to. Unfortunately, the first reprint of the bill did not fully reflect the party's intended revisions. So we have provided a technical consensus amendment to Section 2.5, which contains the language that has been approved by all stakeholders, including the Division of Water Resources. we apologize for the late submittal of the consensus amendment, but it does include some important clarifications to reflect the party's intended desire to preserve the state engineer's ability to regulate other types of waters. The technical amendment really addresses two things. First, it clarifies that the bill will apply to all counties with populations less than 700,000 in size. Eureka County had initially requested a carve-out for the smaller counties, but in reflection, they wanted to be included as part of the bill. So we've now made that clarification so it applies to those smaller counties as well. And the remaining clarifications in subsection B of the bill address the limitations on the types of waters that are subject to these, what we call nuisance stormwater flows or developed stormwater flows, in order to preserve the state engineer's ability to regulate other types of water rights. As I indicated, both of these changes have been agreed to with all of the stakeholders, including the state engineer's office. With the amendment in the proposed consensus amendment, we support the bill. And with that background, I'd like to turn this over to Don Padlock from Heinz Ranch, who can provide some additional information and background on how this bill will apply in practical terms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And go ahead when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and thank you to Assemblywoman Krasner for helping with this important bill to solve this issue for us. My name is Don Padlock, and I'm the general manager of Heinz Ranch Land Company, and we are the developer of a large master plan community in the city of Reno, located in the North Valleys of Washoe County. And if you'll recall, the winters of 2016 and 2017 brought some historic rainfall to our region and really put a magnifying glass on how the jurisdictions manage stormwater and how we as a development community manage stormwater and the developed flows, as Mr. Pawnee went through thoroughly here. So I'm going to add a little color commentary. What we found as we were going through looking at the management and the development community and our response to flooding and how we manage it, we looked at the NRS and the statute, and particularly 533.030, which exempts water rights for stormwater management facilities in Clark County. And the converse of that is the other 16 counties are not exempt from requiring a water right for stormwater management facilities. And as Mr. Pawnee mentioned, the historic practice and current practice of the state engineer is not to require, and I'm sorry, I hope that's coming through, not to require a water right for the non-beneficial use of management of stormwater. So when we look at a project, our obligation through city code and ordinance is not to increase the runoff from our property to our neighboring properties as we develop and we create the impervious surfaces. So very simply, we are trying to close a loophole here that was created in 533.030 that could be read as requiring a water right for stormwater management in the remaining 16 counties, since Clark County is exempt. And with that, without going into too much more detail, we're happy to answer your questions, and we appreciate the opportunity to present today.
Thank you very much. Additional comments? All right, we'll go to questions. Senator Neal, I'll start with you since you're on the Zoom. Do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess what I'm not clear on is what are the current uses that a developer has control over the stormwaters now, but why was there a need to do the insertion of section 2.5 in the beneficial use? Because I'm just not clear, right? Because when I was looking at the statute, you have beneficial use, but then you have 533.0241, which is groundwater. And so when you insert section 2.5, it says that the provisions in 533 do not apply to any of the counties if accepting the amendment, 700,000 and under. But I guess you gotta to give me a little bit more history on what's happening with the stormwater now with the developers, and if it goes into the groundwater, what are we talking about here?
Yes, Michael Pontier, for the record, Chair, through you to Senator Neal. Those are good questions. The provisions that you're looking at in 533.030 talk about the obligation to appropriate a water right when you're putting it to beneficial use. One of the key things to remember with this, and sorry about the light on my face, the key thing to remember about these nuisance stormwater flows is they are not put to a beneficial use. These are waters that are a nuisance flow. They're not something that you can capture and use for municipal purpose, for example. So these are nuisance flows that really you're talking about how do you regulate them to prevent flooding. They're not something you would capture and put to a beneficial use. So the amendment in 2.5 recognizes that simply because a local government is requiring that temporary capture. Normally, if I were temporarily capturing a water right for a beneficial purpose, irrigation or municipal use, I have to have a water right to temporarily capture that water. This statute's recognizing that, no, given the nature of these water rights, you can temporarily capture them because all you're capturing is a nuisance flow and you're preventing a stormwater flooding issue. And that was the importance of the state engineer's clarifications. We define these types of nuisance flows as not being the type of water that is relevant to recharging groundwater resources, which can be used for beneficial purpose, or which are part of the surface water flows that can be captured for beneficial use. It's a different type of water, and that's why it's exempt currently under the state engineer's practices, and that's how we've defined it through the state engineer's recommended language in this bill.
Madam Chair, can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
So currently the local governments, you're calling it nuisance flow, but currently, what were the local governments doing with what you call nuisance flow before this bill?
They were doing the same thing, essentially. They were requiring projects to capture these waters or slow them down so they don't flood the neighboring properties. After the 2016-2017 large precipitation events, the local governments have increased the requirements. So they're requiring let's say a higher ratio of capture than they did previously. And this issue, it's being brought to the forefront really by those higher requirements. And it just raised that question, well, if you're capturing a higher volume, does that trigger something or not? And that's the need for the clarification that no, appropriate, responsible stormwater management should not trigger these requirements. It does not in Clark County. That's same available to the other counties.
So yeah, I'm glad you answered that because that's what I was trying to figure out. Was someone asserting that they then had, beneficial use to the stormwater? And then I was wondering, is there any correlation? Because I remember a bill, I think it was 2 sessions ago, where people capture their own. I mean, I know it's storming, but people are still capturing their rainwater and then reusing it, and whether or not there was any kind of interplay with that issue to this issue.
Thank you, Michael Pontier, again through the chair. No, those are different types of issues, but I can understand why they would trigger the same thing in your mind. Those rain barrel captures, they're capturing water to put it to a recognized beneficial use. This is a temporary slowing down of a water, and it's either going to go right back into the ground and recharge the groundwater source like it would normally, or it's just slowing it down. It's the same amount of water going off. It's just going to come off slower so it doesn't inundate the property next door. And that was the importance of the state engineer's clarifying language to make sure we're not impeding those pre-development flows that are necessary for capture for beneficial use.
So, Madam Chair, just one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have to just really quick, because while you were talking, it made me think about sometimes people have an expected runoff because of the storm. that they expect to get. So how does this impact that? Because so like you could be planning because, it's seasonal, right? And so you're saying, last year we had, 4 inches. And so I expect a certain amount of runoff to come my way through this valley this year. And I'm just wondering, how does this affect that? And then does it at all implicate Section 1 if someone was to argue that their expected amount of runoff they didn't get, or somehow it was impeded because now the developer is a little bit more in control. The way I see it, developer is in a little bit more control to kind of decide what they're responsible for. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
It's Michael Pontius through the chair again to Senator Neal. Yes, that question does make sense. No, this bill does not affect that. And the reason is we're talking about that incremental increase. So that expectation someone may have today about a runoff coming off the native soil, we're talking about an increase above that amount. And what the local governments look to is kind of a do no harm. You cannot increase because of your development the amount of water that's running off. You have to maintain those pre-development flows, but you can't increase above those. So if there's somebody that has a permit where they've appropriated that pre-development flow, we cannot impede it, and this bill does not allow us to impede it. That was the importance of the state engineer's clarifying language.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any additional questions? Senator Hansen? All right. I think Senator Neal kind of got to where I was going, so possibly I don't have any either. So with that being said, Assemblywoman, do you, any closing or any comments right now before we go to support and opposition? Okay. All right. Stay tuned, both of you. We may need you. And we will go to support, opposition, and neutral. Is there anybody in the room who is in support? All right. Broadcasting, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 333, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 323. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 323. Please press star 6 now to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Steve Walker. I represent Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R, representing Story and Lyon County in support of AB 333 as amended. I would like to thank the bill's primary sponsor, Assemblywoman Krasner, for assuring that all entities would be treated equally and accepting our late amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 500. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Dan Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N, CEO of the Builders Association of Northern Nevada and the Nevada Home Builders Association. The Builders Association of Northern Nevada represents more than 600 members associated with development and home construction in Northern Nevada. And while the Nevada Home Builders Association is a statewide advocacy organization that represents and is governed by the Builders Association of Northern Nevada and the Southern Nevada Home Builders Association. We appear today in support of AB 333. We believe that the legislation codifies and clarifies a longstanding unwritten rule that no water rights appropriation is necessary for surface stormwater retention and detention as part of a local government's flood control policy. This type of retention and detention has no real impact on downstream users, but is important to protect the community from significant stormwater events as occurred in Nevada in 2017. The bill also removes any uncertainty over surface water rights and the surrounding issue and creates a more efficient land use appeal process. AB 333 also provides an established briefing schedule for land use appeals, ensuring that builders and local governments can obtain prompt judicial review and that much needed and appropriate building projects and development are not necessarily delayed in court. In whole, AB 333 aligns with the goal of the Builders Association and NVHBA to promote policies that reduce regulatory constraints and controls the cost of development and home construction, thus helping builders and developers bring more affordable homes to the market. We very much thank Assemblywoman Krasner for bringing this bill forward and are proud to support AB 333. We thank you all for your service to the great state of Nevada and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you've recently just joined us, we are currently in support of AB 333. If you'd like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time. Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. Someone else just popped in. Caller with the last 3 digits of 490, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Cyrus Sajati, Cyrus Hojjajaty. I'd like to echo the comments of the previous person, and I am in support of this bill. Thank you. Yield my time. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you very much. And if there are no more callers broadcasting in support, we can go to opposition.
Thank you, Chair. You have no more callers in support at this time. If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 333, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition of AB 333, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll move to neutral.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 333, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 294, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the record, Callie Wilsey with the City of Reno. That's CALLIWIL, S as in Sam, EY. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information as a part of the hearing this afternoon. The City of Reno is neutral on AB 333 and appreciate the bill sponsor reaching out to us in advance with the goals and intent of this bill. The city's zoning code, which was updated in January of this year after a multi-year public engagement process, includes development requirements for areas that are subject to flooding. The purpose of these requirements is to safeguard the public health, safety, and welfare of our neighborhoods. In our closed basins, development plans must include on-site retention basins that are adequately sized to mitigate the increase of stormwater runoff as a result of the development to a minimum mitigation ratio of 1 to 1.3. These mitigation measures are directly focused on ensuring we're able to protect the health and safety of our residents as our community grows and evolves. If additional information is needed, we're happy to follow up with the committee. We look forward to continuing to work with the bill sponsor if needed, and we appreciate them reaching out to us. Thank you again for the opportunity to put this information on the record today.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Chair, you have no more callers neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Assemblywoman or one of the gentlemen, I don't know who can answer this. I do have a question. And my question is, why is it that there's not just a development of some type of a water runoff area? For example, in my district, we have a soccer park that was built. And when it rains and it floods to certain degrees, they close that soccer park and it actually becomes a drain for that floodwater, a capture area. So why is it that that type of a idea isn't being used?
Michael Pani, the chair, to respond to the question. Those types of mitigation measures could be used, and that's within part of what the bill seeks to protect is the local government's ability to choose those types of mitigation measures if it wishes. But to do that, what we're trying to avoid is the obligation of the local government to have to try to appropriate a water right to use that type of stormwater management technique. So those techniques are one of the many tools that they can use to manage the stormwater flows. We're just looking at, is there a requirement that they have to appropriate a water right if they want to use one of those tools?
So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
Excuse me, if I may, your question is on point, and Senator Neal's point are well taken. I just want to assure everybody that the ordinances that govern stormwater management remain the same. The practices remain the same. Everything you're referring to remains the same in this bill. What we're attempting to clarify is, and I think it was 2 sessions ago when 533030 was put into statute and exempted a water right for the exact description of a retention, or sorry, that's a detention basin you're describing in Clark County, that a water right is not required for that type of facility. The state engineer historically has not required water rights. We are basically closing that loophole. So all the management remains the same, the way that jurisdictions manage it, the way that developers manage those flows in response to our local ordinances, and how the state engineer historically and currently practices. So the questions you're raising are all very good questions, and the current practices remain the same. It is the nuance and potentially unintended consequences of 533030 that could potentially subject the other 16 counties to having to issue a water right for the very facilities that we use every day in our jurisdiction. And Senator Neal, directly to your point on downstream water right users, as a developer, we are not allowed to either increase the flows off our property nor decrease the flows off our property. We must maintain the natural balance of that system through our development. And what we end up doing is creating additional water from the impervious surfaces that we are required to then hold back on our sites so we do not impact any of the downstream water users by capturing their water, which this isn't. This is new water created from the impervious surfaces, and then we are not allowing, from a stormwater perspective, increasing the flows that could flood down basin owners. So I hope this is helping answer your question. Your questions are good, and our system of management should remain the same with this bill.
Thank you very much. And then just one other clarifying question for the record. So is the amendment that we received from McDonald Carano a friendly amendment, and you haven't accepted it?
Yes, that's correct. And that's
Okay.
the amendment that all parties are now in agreement upon.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that because we didn't ask that earlier. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Padlock and Mr. Boy, that was a hard one for me, wasn't it, today? Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Thank you, Assemblywoman, and with that, I'll close the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Don Darrell Loop and committee members. I would appreciate your support on AB 333.
Thank you very much, and we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 335. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Don Darrell Loop and members. My name is Chandra Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman for Assembly District 6 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here today to present to you Assembly Bill 335, which makes just minor changes, in my opinion, necessary changes to existing legislation. The purpose here is to increase clarity and transparency by asking the City of Las Vegas Redevelopment District to report certain information and then to allow that information to be discussed with a committee that is already existing in our community. It's called the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board. I sat on that board for a couple of years. It has stayed in existence over that time, and it just allows them to have some active participation in what happens in the redevelopment zone as far as development is concerned. With me today, oh my goodness, I just forgot.
Ms. Joanna Jacob.
Thank you. Ms. Joanna Jacob from Clark County, but I have someone from City of Las Vegas here. I'm so
Ms.
sorry.
Kelly Crumpton.
Oh my God. I should have written it down.
It's-
Obviously, I'm having a major senior moment.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's later in the day, and I've been doing this a few sessions, so welcome. We're happy to have them.
Yes. So when I proposed this legislation early in the session, I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Bill Arndt and his staff and talk to them about the intent and to make sure that we were in line with what they do so that they were clear with what we were trying to purpose, the information that we want to gather. Also added a small addition for the Nevada Commission on Minority Affairs to also be involved. I think that one of the things that I've seen over the years and heard many times in the community as I've participated from community members is we don't know what's going on. We don't know how the employment plans are working. We don't know if small local businesses are getting contracts. And so this gives some stops. There is a plan at the beginning, which was already in existence. What we've added is a follow-up in the middle of a project. So if we know that a construction project is going to take 2 years or 3 years, in the middle, they would come back to the Southern Nevada Enterprise Community Board and say, hey, this is where we are with our goals and our hiring plan and our training plan, and let that board hear that information, comment, help if need be. The same with the Nevada Commission on Minority Affairs. And then at the end of a project, they already do a report. So we have something in the middle sort of to be a buffer and just let things develop as they do, but also community involvement, clarity, and then to tune things up if need be. I was contacted recently by Miss Joanna Thompson. I'm having a moment. Did I say that? Jacobs. Joanna Jacobs. Oh, I'm tired. Joanna Jacobs. I should just write that down right now. And the Clark County would like to add an amendment. I believe you all have it, and I am not even going to attempt to try and muddle through that. I think it would be best if Ms. Thompson and Ms. Coleman, I believe, is on the line to express what it is they would like to do, and I will yield right now. Stop while I'm ahead.
Okay.
Hold on.
Sounds great. Ms. Jacobs, would you like to go first, or would you like Ms. Thomas, and would you like? Okay. Go ahead, please. You know, it's all a calamity in here from start to finish, so we take it. Go ahead.
Gosh. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the committee. I am actually very happy to be here in person in front of you. I've spent a lot of time with you on Zoom during this session. And I just wanted to introduce on the Zoom, we have our Director of Community and Economic Development, Ms. Shawnee Coleman, who might be familiar to you from legislative sessions past. It is true, we approached the Assemblywoman just 2 days ago, actually, because I wanted to just give you a little bit of context about what's going on in Clark County, and then I will hand it over to Director Coleman, who can walk us through the goals of our amendment. We started a conversation in Clark County before COVID in 2019 about economic development in Clark County and our goals. At that time, our Board of County Commissioners was looking for ways to invest in our community and in economic development. They commissioned a RFP to do a study on feasibility of our redevelopment agency. We did have a redevelopment agency in the past that was started in 2003, but it was shuttered in 2009 at the time of the recession, just prior to the 2009 legislative session. And it has been shuttered, I guess, since that time. We did commission the study. During the course of the study, we actually had the great privilege of bringing on Director Coleman, who is leading up our new Department of Community and Economic Development. Ms. Coleman has over 10 years of experience, having joined the county from the city of Las Vegas. And I wanted to just clarify that the purpose of the amendment here is really one that came up just at our county commission meeting last week on May 4th, when we had a discussion about redevelopment goals at the board level, and they had said that they would like to have staff, meaning Director Coleman and everybody who works at Clark County, bring back a resolution about whether we could possibly reauthorize our redevelopment agency. We know we've been looking at the state of Nevada redevelopment law that has developed since the time that our RDA has been defunct, and we wanted to look at some sections that would be helpful to us as we kind of go down this journey. I would like to say that the commissioners have not yet voted. This is not something that we're doing quickly. We are assessing the feasibility of doing this in our community, but some of these sections in the amendment are designed to give us some of the flexibility and time to do a thoughtful and careful approach. I can hand it over to Director Coleman. I'm looking at her on the Zoom. Madam Chair, I can give a high-level overview of what we're trying to do in the amendment, and I guess and I could have Director Coleman do that as well, but I don't know if that would be helpful to you.
Whatever works for you to present the bill is we're happy to hear.
Okay, so Director Coleman, I don't know if you'd like to go through the amendment and just kind of our goals on each section,
Sure.
or if you would like me to do that.
Sure. For the record, or first of all, good afternoon, Madam Chair Dondero Loop. It's wonderful to see you again. I miss seeing you guys in person. And hello to members of the committee. Director Shawnee Coleman, Community and Economic Development for Clark County. That's SHANI Coleman, COLEMAN. Joanna pretty much did a really good job of summing it up. I was hired by Clark County in November of 2019 after the redevelopment study was commissioned. And in looking at the study and listening to the commissioners in reference to economic development goals, we recognize that the Nevada Revised Statute 279 provides communities like Clark County and others within the state an opportunity to utilize an organizational and financial model specific to addressing redevelopment concepts. And with that said, as Joanna mentioned, on May 4th, Clark County Board of County Commissioners directed me to bring forward a resolution that would allow them to reauthorize the Clark County's existing redevelopment agency. However, in the time that Clark County's redevelopment agency has not been operating, there have been a number of amendments made to the redevelopment law. And those amendments happen to be very specific to cities. So there's language in there such as applies to a city with a population over 500,000 or applies to a city with a population of under 300,000. And so because there was that very specific language to cities, Clark County wanted to clarify that we would be able and have access to the same language and the same facilities of redevelopment that the other jurisdictions in Southern Nevada have. All the jurisdictions in Southern Nevada have redevelopment agencies, and because they are cities, they are provided certain provisions in 279. And the purpose of this amendment is just to clarify that Clark County also has the ability to utilize those same statutory provisions. And so as you look through the amendment that was provided, you will see it adds language that states things such as 439, this is an ability for a redevelopment agency to extend the life of the agency. We've added that language, a county whose population is 700,000 or more. So Clark County would also have the same ability as our counterparts in Southern Nevada to do those things. And so that's the language that you see throughout the bill. We are just trying to create parity with the other jurisdictions in Southern Nevada. So our redevelopment agency is not operating at a competitive disadvantage. And with that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions that anybody that the committee may have.
Okay. Did I see somebody else on the Zoom? Do we need maybe Ms. Crumpton up here? And then I don't know who else is on the Zoom. I don't see a name, so we'll wait just a minute. Ms. Crumpton?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the City of Las Vegas. With me today, I have Ryan Smith with our Economic Development Department. He's here to just answer any technical questions. There were a few on the other side, and so we wanted to make sure we were available to answer questions should you have any.
Ms. Crumpton, before you go, would you, I'm sorry, I wasn't writing fast enough. What was Ryan's last name again?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kelly Crompton. His last name is Smith.
Smith. Oh, well, that was a hard one. Sorry, Mr. Smith. It's a little wild in here today. Okay. With that being said, Ms. Jacob, do you have anything you need to add before we go to questions?
No, Chairwoman. I'm certainly happy to assist Director Coleman, and we can answer specific questions about the amendment. Just briefly, is the sections that we are doing are as exactly as Director Coleman stated. There's a section in here that allows the redevelopment agency, for example, to do a one-time reassessment of property tax values if we hit a recession again and property tax values decline by a 10%. This is existing policy of the state, and it is something that the cities are allowed to do. It allows us to rebase the property tax values in a redevelopment agency. These types of things that we think could be helpful to us as we go forward. You will see there is a section in here at the bottom of page 1 of our amendment where we use a different term, community, here where we're saying we may enact our own procedural ordinance and exercise the powers granted by the chapter. You can see that this says a city here. Community is a defined term in the 279, which includes a city and a county, which is why that you see that distinction there. I'm happy to answer further questions, but I guess we can leave it there, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go to questions, and I absolutely know that Senator Neal has one, and so I'm going to go to her first since she's on the Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm gonna start off with a softball question. What are the boundaries of this redevelopment area? Because you guys have not been in play. It was dissolved in 2009, and the redevelopment agency was only active for 6 years. So what are the boundaries? Because there's no map.
So, Madam Chair, thank you for that question. For the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. Under NRS 279-436, a redevelopment agency actually can't be dissolved. So what it does, it provides an opportunity for the redevelopment agency to be suspended and inactive. And then based on a resolution by the legislative body, in this case would be the Board of County Commissioners, they can reauthorize or reactivate that. When we established our redevelopment agency back in 2002 and our redevelopment plan in 2003, there were 3 areas already in existence. With a reauthorization of our existing redevelopment area, those 3 areas would be the extent of what our redevelopment area would be considered. And offhand, I can tell you what they are. There is a section that is bounded by Sahara Avenue to the north. It is Maryland Parkway to the east. It is Caron to the west. And then as you get to Paradise, it jogs out heads south on Paradise, wraps around, I believe it's Elvis Presley Lane, which is basically the south side of the Drew, crosses over Las Vegas Boulevard, and cuts through what I believe is MGM's fairgrounds, and then comes back to Sahara. That's one. The second one that we have is a small area that is Maryland Parkway again, but bounded by Desert Inn and goes to Twain. So it covers the commercial frontage between Desert Inn and Twain on Maryland Parkway. And then there is a third area that is at Sahara and Boulder Highway. It's actually a very small parcel, and it's Boulder Highway, Sahara, and it actually backs up to, I think if you're familiar with that area, would have been an old Zodi's. And so it doesn't even have a street, it's just a small area. And so if Clark County Board of County Commissioners chose to react the redevelopment agency, that would be the areas that are currently included in that. Now, I think maybe the question that you're getting to is, okay, well, what happens after that? So as Ms. Jacob mentioned, there has been a study done by Applied Analysis. They have identified what in redevelopment law is called an evaluation area. There are 6 of those areas that have been identified, and Applied Analysis did that simply by looking at, okay, comparing taxable values, crime, vacancy rates for those areas against other parts of the valley. And so they identified 6 areas in unincorporated Clark County that could potentially be redevelopment areas. Now, what does that mean? Well, that just means they've been identified. Per NRS, those areas can't be added in. We would have to go through a full blight study as prescribed in NRS 279 before we could add those areas in. But to follow up on that, in our discussion with the Board of Clark County Commissioners, not all of the county commissioners would like redevelopment areas in their district, right? And so if you look at this, look at the 6 areas on the map, there are 2 districts right now that do not include any of what we call evaluation areas, and that is Commissioner Naft and Commissioner Miller's. And then there have been some commissioners who have expressed that they want redevelopment, but they don't necessarily want to establish a formalized redevelopment area in their district. And so we as an organization, if the board decides to authorize the redevelopment agency, we will be evaluating and having conversations about what is appropriate for Clark County and working with the commissioners on what they think is appropriate for their districts.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I have like probably 2 more questions. So
go ahead.
Based on the areas that you said, number 1, they encompass, sounds like the original areas, because I pulled the tax roll for the I guess the areas that were Clark County redevelopment, Sunrise Manor, Winchester, Paradise, etc. Some of those cross over to the Strip. And so, I mean, you know how redevelopment works. So maybe you should just kind of explain how those tax dollars that go into the space are then, it's kind of like, I call it a siphoning. Because when I was looking at the article of when it was dissolved, if you guys create a redevelopment, you're taking money away from schools. There's a potential effect there. And then I'm going to get into your amendment. So how will you deal with that?
Sure, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Neal. For the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. You are correct. The 3 areas that are defined, these are the original areas because we are reactivating or reauthorizing the original redevelopment agency, right? We are not starting a new one. And so because of the way 279-436 is written, everything that was established in 2002 and 2003 with the reactivation, that remains as is. Nothing changes with those things. And so in relation to the schools, when you establish a redevelopment agency, so if we were to establish a new one today, there is a hold harmless clause. And so if you look at 279-676, that provides that any taxing district that is part of the distribution for redevelopment dollars, that anything they were getting before the redevelopment agency was established, they will continue to receive after the redevelopment agency was established. So as a way of an example, if the school district was getting $100,000 before Clark County established its redevelopment agency, Clark County School District would continue to receive that $100,000 even when the redevelopment agency is established. All taxing districts based on 279-676 are held harmless. They do not lose any money. They continue to get what they were getting prior to the establishment of the agency.
And thank you, Ms. Coleman, for that, because that is my problem, right? I mean, because technically last year and this year, we're in a pandemic piece. So you want to establish this bill is effective. I think I saw the effective date of July 1. So technically, the whole harmless period would kick in when? Because starting from 2021, July 1st, and then so they're being held harmless in a cycle where revenues were not where they should have been.
Madam Chair, through you to Senator Neal, for the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development. The way NRS currently works and the way the law is provided in 279-676, the redevelopment agency holds harmless. They go back to the equalization period, the last equalization period prior to the ordinance approving the redevelopment plan. So in this instance, our redevelopment plan was approved in December of 2003. So the last equalization that would have happened prior to that would have been for the fiscal year or the end of the fiscal year of 2002. And so anything that the school district or anybody in there was entitled to in 2000 and would have been in 2003, fiscal year 2003, they continue to get that. The way the law is written right now, it does not allow us to go back and backtrack. Now, Ms. Jacobs did mention to you, there is a provision and there is a section there is a section, it's 279-685, that allows for a reset. So one-time reset. However, the way the language is currently written, only cities are allowed to use that reset. So based on 279-676, we have to use the equalization standard table set in July, the end of June of 2002. So that's the standard we would need to move forward. And if in the event we met the qualifications, meaning that there was a 10% decrease, we could reset, which would reset the base for everybody. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, those are the way the laws are provided and the limitations that we have. Right now, under the way the law is currently written, we don't believe that Clark County even has the authority to do the reset if we wanted to do the reset, because it's very specific to cities.
So that's what's super confusing, because in the amendment, it's like you're inserting yourselves into the city provisions. But I'm gonna get off of the reset, because I have a whole issue about the taxing and the revenue that you would then be able to cycle for your development plan. Because there's an amendment, but there's no numbers, right? So there's no the tax revenue for the area that where it is currently. The way that the insertion is, you guys are inserting yourselves directly into 279. And I have a huge concern with the insertion of you guys into 279-6855, which allows you to go in and do the increase, improve and preserve public education facilities. That was a hard press issue for me when the city of Las Vegas asked for it, but they had done pilot schools under Dr. Hibbler before they asked for it. And even when they asked for it, I still had some super concerns. But having the county to trigger that information, not trigger that information, but trigger that provision is a huge problem for me. Number one, it's not your role. Number two, Clark County has their own capital improvement money. They have bonding, and there are other things that they're responsible for. And I don't feel 279-6855 is, number one, a proper place. I know that door seemed to have been open on that half-cent sales tax on AB 309, but even that half-cent sales tax was a hard-pressed vote for me. And I don't see, and I'm not willing to open the door for like a county having that level of local control over buildings or public education facilities where Clark County School District, it has that role. So can you speak to that? Because if you guys are going to start engaging in the practice of creating schools or improving facilities, I have a huge objection to that.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, through you to Senator Neal, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development, for the record. Yes, we inserted ourselves into that because we were trying to create parity, and we didn't want Clark County to have an unfair advantage in our redevelopment agency that the cities were required to do. So the 18% set aside is something that was established by the legislature. It wasn't something, to my knowledge, that was requested. And if you look at the language as it reads right now, Clark County would not have to set aside any money to do any of those community benefits, right? And so we didn't think it was fair that, okay, you know, City of Henderson, North Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas has to set aside 18% of the redevelopment revenue, and then Clark County did not have to do the same thing. And so that is the reason why we wrote ourselves into that bill. If you look at redevelopment law 279, I think it's 685, that is a provision that's specific to the City of Las Vegas. Their 18% set aside is split 9 and 9. 9% goes to affordable housing, 9% goes to education. They're required to do that till 2030 or 2031. All of the other redevelopment agencies of a size, basically in Southern Nevada, are required to do 18% set aside, and all 18% goes to education. As the bill, as NRS 279 is currently written, Clark County would not be required. So if you have a concern about us creating that parity, that requirement, we can have that conversation. We were just trying to be fair for the other jurisdictions and not create a competitive advantage where they're required to put this 18% aside, but Clark County was not.
So thank you for that, because I don't see it as a parity issue, not in my mind, but also the 18% that it was requested because they were no longer doing affordable housing. And they were like, since we have this leeway, we would like to use that money to then perform these activities within the educational space. And so I think that you're doing this amendment, and I understand that what Clark County wants to attempt to do, and that you want to engage in the practice of redevelopment. But I honestly feel like this needs a little bit more time and it needs its own bill to come back and have a full discussion about all of the implications, putting the boundaries in the record that are envisioned, putting the revenues in the record that will be affected, talking about, what are the implications of the reauthorization of the redevelopment area. Because when I was looking at the 2009, the money that was being taken, it affected, it didn't just affect schools. There was a whole conversation about public safety and healthcare. And so, I really want to understand and have a little bit more data associated with this amendment and this proposal. I see that you guys saw the door open, but I'm not so sure about it. But Madam Chair, I'll leave it there and let the committee ask questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Neal. Additional questions? Senator Hansen.
Thanks. Well, I have to admit, I feel like I'm butting in where I don't belong. This is a Clark County issue. But I will say, just reading the bill, the developer will in hiring, well, first of all, you want all subcontractors within 100 miles. I understand the goal here is try to get as many people in the local area, the redevelopment, employed. The problem you run into from a contractor perspective, the developer will in hiring for construction jobs to the project uses best efforts to hire veterans and persons of sexes and diverse ethnicities living within the redevelopment area. The problem is, okay, these are going to typically be prevailing wage projects. You've got to have a certain number of people that are journeyman grade craftsmen, craftswomen, craftspersons, or whatever it is. You got to have a certain number that are in official union, general union sponsored apprenticeship programs. They've got to have OSHA 10 cards, OSHA 30 cards. That's just a start. And then you're going to require them to try to also include an agreement to offer training in all these kind of things. I could see if the project was to drag on for like 20 years, you could theoretically set up a program to train local folks and give them apprenticeship opportunities and OSHA training and all the things that it takes to become a construction worker. So just the logistics of it, I don't see. Plus, I think Senator Neal hit it out of the park on that. Look, I've been watching redevelopment projects my whole adult life. I remember 1977, Sparks started one trying to save the Nugget in downtown Sparks, and ended up going on for 30 years and never worked, cost millions of dollars, and more importantly, it siphoned money away from other legitimate government services that were needed. So while I support the concept of trying to help local people in a downtrodden area, I'm just kind of wondering, has anybody thought of all the logistics of the costs and the needs to meet all the other state laws required for prevailing wage type projects?
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Chandra Summers Armstrong, Assembly District 6 for the record. I haven't dug that far in the weeds, but I'd like to just share a little bit with you. I have lived in West Las Vegas, which is one of the hardest hit financial communities in Southern Nevada, for 22 years. I have seen most recently a $50 million tax credit go to the building of an event center onto the World Market Center, which was partly funded by redevelopment dollars, which is adjacent to the Chelsea. Back in the day, it was called the Chelsea Outlet. That was also sponsored by redevelopment dollars. And then there is the hotel downtown on Main Street Station, which used millions of dollars in redevelopment funds. And I'm sure I could probably guess pretty closely that the Circa that just went up got some benefit from the redevelopment department, as well as the Mob Museum and the Smith Center. All these are in a redevelopment area that I can ride my bike to from my home, which is in an area that has seen blight exacerbated in the last 20 years because of disinvestment. People move out, houses are derelict, we have empty lots. At some point, whether it can pencil out all the way or we can put a spreadsheet together and make it all make sense, at some point we got to say, you know what, we need to start someplace. We are giving away money for a purpose to help people come into our communities to build. The people who live there should have a reasonable expectation that when this money is used for that purpose, somebody will go to a proper organization like DETR or like Nevada Partners or somewhere and say, hi, we're here to do a project and we need to hire people. And can you help us? And make some arrangements and some relationships to get people employed. The whole purpose of a redevelopment agency is to rebuild communities that are devastated. But you can't do that if people are not working. Ward 5, which encompasses this area, has had sustained 15% unemployment for 20 years. And all this redevelopment money is going into the very community, and all these edifices are being built, and we still have 15% unemployment. At some point, we got to figure something out. And just saying, no, it seems difficult, cannot be a solution. We have to say, yes, this is difficult, but we're going to work with the redevelopment agency, with the agencies that are state funded and that do this type of work for job training, and figure out how we can work with the unions and work with all these folks to get somebody trained and employed so that they're not now using government funds from another department, HHS or whomever, to survive when they could have been learning a skill to help them move on out of poverty. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, I understand, and I frankly respect your whole efforts. I'm just saying, like you say, when you get in the weeds, it gets a lot more complicated. And I know for a fact that Senator Neal has been watching these kind of things, as did her father before her. So, you know, it's not like people haven't thought some of this through, and it's not quite as simple as, you know, just saying, well, we're going to put it in this area and we're going to make sure everybody in that area gets employed, because there may not be in that neighborhood the type of people who can even have the skills to do the work that's required. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. I understand, and I wish you the best. I am out of my league because I live in Sparks, and so what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Until you come to visit, and then it might change just a little bit. We're going to have you come down and bring your expertise.
Thank you very much. Additional questions? Senator Gocochea, questions? So mine's pretty surface, and that is, when you talk about the 100,000, for example, that the school will get or keep with the hold harmless, where's the funding going to come from? If I'm a school district or a school and I'm keeping that 100,000, where does the excess money come from that the builder will get? Am I understanding that right?
Madam Chair, Chandra Summers Armstrong for the record. I am going to yield that to Ms. Jacobs, and I think she can handle that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Joanna Jacob from Clark County. I believe what you're referring to, Madam Chair, is the funding that is generated in the district. And I'm going to try and do this, and Director Coleman can correct me, or Senator Neal can correct me, right, when I say this. But when you
Joanna,
said,
why don't you?
Yep. Go, Director Coleman.
I'm happy to answer the question.
I guess on how the funding is generated, and then we set the 18% set aside. Thank you.
Absolutely. For the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development. So, Madam Chair, the way formalized redevelopment works at the state of Nevada is there is a base. So when a community establishes a redevelopment area or agency, there is a base that is set. And so that is the hold harmless piece. So for instance, like I mentioned, Clark County School District, they were to get $100,000. That was their base. All of that remains the same. But the purpose of redevelopment, and the goal is to increase values in those areas. So what happens is all of the taxing agencies that contribute to a redevelopment agency are held harmless, which means that the base is set, everybody gets the base. The work that the redevelopment agency does to improve the neighborhood and improve value is called the tax increment. That tax increment is what goes into what we call the redevelopment fund, and that is the money that continues to be recycled through the redevelopment agency, and that's how the agency gets money. So, for instance, you set up a redevelopment agency and the base is set at 500. Through the work that the agency does, now the property value is no longer 500, but now that property value is 2,000. So that increment, that difference, that $1,500 difference, that is the funding that goes back into the agency, and that is continued to be recycled through the agency to support redevelopment throughout that particular redevelopment area. The school district continues to get their base, or all of the agencies, they continue to get that 500 that was established at the base. So it's only the increment that we're talking about. And the goal is, like I said, if the redevelopment agency is doing what it was intended to do, those valuations within those neighborhoods goes up, the increment goes up after 30 years, because currently in NRS, redevelopment plan only lasts for 30 years. All of that increment, all of that value goes back to all of those taxing agencies that are part of the redevelopment agency. The taxing agencies that Clark County uses are the same taxing agencies that are used by the city of Las Vegas, the city of Henderson, the city of North Las Vegas. So there's no differentiation there. NRS those things are set by statute. So it wouldn't be like Clark County's taxing districts are different and we're taking out a different amount than what is allotted, or something different that the city of Henderson or North Las Vegas or city of Las Vegas does. Those things are set in place. And so that standard, the way that money and that tax increment is something that's standard across all redevelopment agencies in Southern Nevada.
Go ahead. Did you?
Madam Chair, I was just going to point out that that's what, just to clarify, for Director Coleman, the increment is the funding, then that's the 18% set aside that Senator Neal's, the revenue.
So that's the revenue. So just again, Shawnee Coleman. So the 18% set aside is a portion of the redevelopment fund. So it's a portion of that increment. And so just to give some clarity, if the increment, like I said, was $1,500 and that is what is flowing, that's the revenue that's flowing into the redevelopment fund, 18% of that $1,500, that is the portion that is set aside for either education or for the city of Las Vegas, affordable housing and education. So that is what the 18% set aside is. That is money that is taken out of their general or their annual revenue that they can only use for that specific purpose. So the tax increment and the 18% set aside are two different things.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Neal, go ahead.
Thanks. So can you put on the record what is the current base? So if you're taking it back to 2002, then what's the current base that you guys are going to be playing off of? Because that matters. Because any new development that comes in, you're going to get that excess. So the base from 2002 is excessively low. So what's the number?
For the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. Madam Chair, through you to Senator Neal. I don't have a number for the base. What I can tell you is we have done estimates based on our existing redevelopment agency and the 3 areas that are currently contained in there. And the annual revenue based on using all of those numbers is roughly $7.6 to $7.7 million.
Okay, and then if you have, and so you've also done estimate if you go in there and redevelopment, and you redevelop in that area, and you have a new development, so the new development will then give you some excess. So what are your estimates? Because somebody has to be envisioning a project or something that they're thinking about. So you went and applied analysis. He did some hypotheticals for you. So give me an example of like if he said, okay, you guys want to build a shopping center, what then would you see as the money that you would get from that new development that you could then continue to recycle? Did he give you any hypotheticals?
For the record, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. Madam Chair, through you, Senator Neal, we do not have any estimates. That was not the purpose of the study. The study was just to determine whether or not there were areas in Clark County that could benefit from the redevelopment law. And then also identify potentially those evaluation areas. We have not identified specific projects. As Ms. Jacobs have noted, this has been a slow process for us. The redevelopment study was something that was requested by the Board of County Commissioners back in the summer of 19. I was hired in November of 2019, and I was able to provide some of my knowledge from my previous work experience. And so under that, I was able to show them that, hey, you already have an agency and you have the ability to turn it back on. But because this has been a long discussion and a thoughtful discussion, there has been no considerations for any particular project, and applied analysis did not provide us with any hypotheticals other than the information regarding the 3 areas that currently already exist.
So thank you, Ms. Coleman. I appreciate all of the dialogue. I would like to see the study. I support the original version of the bill that Ms. Assemblywoman Armstrong had, but the amendment, I don't know. But I really feel like it's coming with this level of an amendment, and that's a big conversation that, at least providing that study, number one, providing what applied analysis had to say, so there can at least be some depth and conversation from the committee to understand the decision that would be made to allow you guys to go back into 279. It's a big deal. And I'm still not clear on like which particular areas that you guys really, really developed. And I feel like you need to go in, you need to prove that those areas have blight, and then you need to come back. You need to say, okay, we know we have blight. We know that these areas have not, still need significant growth within Clark County. I could agree with Sunrise Mountain being one of those places, 89115, unincorporated part of the county, because that's part of my district. However, I don't like randomness, and I've always had a problem with redevelopment, and I've always given the cities a hard time. So the county would be no different.
Madam Chair, through you, Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development. Senator Neal, I understand your concern. I guess I just want to clarify, a few things. Clark County is not asking whether or not we can turn our redevelopment agency back on. We already have, the law already allows us to do that. And so what Clark County is asking for is to be written into the same provisions that a city has. Right now, a city can extend the life of their agency Clark County can turn their agency back on if the board, that was a choice that they made. But based on the way the law is written and the plan only be available for 30 years, if the board were to so choose, in the next couple of weeks to pass that resolution, our redevelopment agency only has 12 years. So we don't have the same ability that a city would have to extend the life of the agency. That is what we're asking for. I mean, we would follow the law just as any other agency would follow the law. But there are provisions that have been done specific to the cities, and we're just simply asking for that parity, like the ability to extend the life of the agency. We think it's fair that if the cities have the ability to do that, that the county should also have the ability to do that. So I just want to be clear. We're not asking for anything above and beyond different than what the law currently provides the jurisdictions that already have redevelopment agencies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Coleman, for answering my questions. I think I did forewarn Ms. Jacobs that I was pretty salty about this amendment. So apologize if you feel beat up on right now.
Madam Chair, Joanna
Senator
Jacob,
Neal,
for the
yes.
record. I was going to say, Senator Neal, through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Neal, I do not feel beat up on. We did have a conversation before this, and these are good questions. I respect your opinion a lot. We respect your opinion a lot, and you have asked us for the feasibility study. I heard that several times you mentioned that several times, so I wanted to say for the committee, for the purposes of the committee, we will provide that to the committee, and you can take a look at the work that we have done so far. And I can provide that immediately following the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I am going to go to support, opposition, and neutral, if you don't mind, if you don't have anything else that needs to be hashed out right this minute. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the City of Las Vegas. The City of Las Vegas is in support of the bill. While this isn't a bill that we asked the Assemblywoman to bring, we did have many conversations with her on the other side of the House, talked her through our redevelopment agency and the projects that we have done, and are supportive of the measure. To address Senator Hansen's concerns, we do share some of those concerns as well. However, part of Ward 5's 100 Plan in Action, which is one of Councilman Creer's priorities, does include workforce development and on-the-job training. And so we're hopeful that with his priorities in the workforce development area and the provisions in this bill, we can address some of those concerns. We do work very closely with the SNEC committee. We're hopeful that as we navigate through this new bill, where there are smaller projects, maybe we're giving a $10,000 incentive, a $100,000 incentive, and not the $30 million incentives, we can work with the SNEC committee, we can work with the state to say, we tried, we put it out there, we put it in the workforce development area, we put it out in Ward 5, show the work that our development is doing, and move on if we can't find the people within that area, which is what we currently do. We do provide reporting to the state. Our economic development department does require that we send reports, I believe, to LCB on the RDA, and so this is just another one of those provisions that we would continue to report that just to a couple of other agencies. So we are supportive. We thank the Assemblywoman for bringing us into the conversation, and again, we have Ryan Smith to answer any questions should you need that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to go to support, opposition, and neutral. We're short on time, on deadline, and we're short on time today because we have finance. So if you don't mind, we'll do that right now. Okay. I don't see anybody in the room, and so I will go to broadcasting. And would you please see if there's anybody in support?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 335, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of AB 335, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then can we go to opposition, please?
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 335, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much, and we'll go to neutral.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 335, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. Any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for staying late in hearing this. Obviously, we have a situation with the amendment, and so I think Clark County and Senator Neal and I need to have a conversation, and I will get back with you. I think the original bill in its first form is allowable, and I think that there could be support for that, and we'll figure out tonight about the other, because I know we're close on deadline, and we'll get back with you one way or another as soon as possible.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Assemblywoman, and we appreciate your time and yours, Ms. Crompton and Ms. Jacobs, and of course, Ms. Coleman, for all your expertise as well. Mr. Smith, thank you for being here. Hope to see you in the building someday.
I got off easy.
You did. Next time we won't let you. All right, with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 335, and we'll look forward to hearing if there's any resolution. So thank you very much. With that, we have one more thing on the agenda. We have public comment, so broadcasting when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to speak in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to speak in public comment at this time.
All righty, well, thank you very much. Then with that, committee members and Senator Neal as well, on Zoom, we will call it a day and we'll adjourn our meeting, and we'll meet again, if not before, for sure, on Friday at 3:30. Thank you.